All right, everybody, we're live for another episode of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. Of course, I am your host, Todd Rosales, and welcome to our third episode this week. It's been a while since we've done 3 episodes. In fact, we only did 1 episode last week, but I guess it was our cooking episode, so well received that we only had to do 1 for you. Next week, we only have 1 interview for you as well. I've mentioned it a few times, but tune in on Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. We're going to take a little bit of time off for the holidays, or maybe we'll pop up for a special episode on Friday. But we have an interview with Sparky Rose. Really excited to speak to him. Our guest today might actually know who that is. But Sparky Rose is going to be joining us, and that will be at 6:30 p.m., facebook.com/Canna Business Group. Of course, check out the great interviews that we released this week. Dan Berman from Cannabis PPO, Dr. Chandra Macias, and what was the last one? HBK, my good friends, Nick O'Dilly and Amy Renault. It's always hard when you forget your actual friends. Nick and I go way back. So check out those recorded episodes. You can see those at youtube.com/elevate your grind. And of course, we've got some panels coming up over the next few weeks. Going to have some great content for you. You can always check that out at joinclab.com. Of course, if you're not a member of C-Lab yet and you want access to all the great people that we have in our organization, like the ones you see on this podcast, you can always join at joinclab.com too. There are monthly membership fees that are good for any budget. All right, that is all of the housekeeping we have for today. This is our last show for the week. I'm very excited because I always say on this show, there are a few different crops of people that I get to have on the show. I get to meet with some of the successful entrepreneurs in our space, and people have been doing this for a long time, like Steve D'Angelo and Paul Rosen, and eventually Sparky Rose. I get to have some of my friends on here, like, I actually have to tell who's my friend and who's not. Maybe I shouldn't go into that. But, guys like Nick and Steve Ernest and Halston and some of the interviews that you've seen where there's a good back and forth. And then what I always love is getting to see the new crop of entrepreneurs that are coming up, just like our very own Evan Bob, who is the one who introduced me to today's guest. I always joke around with Evan saying he's done more in college than I have in the past 10 years. And I'm pretty sure when we speak to people like our guest today, people like Carson Humiston, they're all in the same boat. I'm starting my entrepreneurial journey at 34, and they realized it much earlier. So with all that being said, I'm very happy to talk tech with our guest today. Please welcome Cree Robinson and Louis Masensi, founders of touCanna. Thank you both for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it is a pleasure. Evan said that he's going to stop editing my videos if I don't have you on. So, of course, here we are. No, I kid. He was telling me, Evan knows that I have a technology background. And when he told me about your company, I was actually very happy to have you on because I love seeing the tech companies in the space because there hasn't been a clear-cut winner yet. And we don't have the Microsofts and the Oracles and all the other companies rushing into this space to come save us. So it's awesome to see entrepreneurs having the ability to create a tech stack from scratch that fits this industry. So I was very excited to talk to you. So give me a little bit of background on the company, right? Obviously, you guys saw a need for technology in the cannabis space. But go back further than that. What brought you into the space? Was it somewhere that you wanted to work, or was it the opportunity that brought you in here?
Yeah, so I think we both have slightly different stories, actually. So for me personally, I've always been a believer in cannabis. Have not always been a user, but I was always a believer in cannabis. And so we came together a couple of years ago, and we saw how the cannabis industry was growing. We're both from Detroit. And so we just wanted to create something in this space. I'm very personally passionate about working in spaces that have, negatively impacted people of color and women, and as well as spaces that don't include those groups. I really wanted to do something in the cannabis industry to, just make things easier. After talking with so many people in the industry, cannabis professionals are some of the hardest working, but most stressed out people that I've encountered.
Oh yeah.
And so I just, wanted to do something that made life easier for them because they're under a lot of pressure right now.
Yeah, so precisely. Yeah. So my background's in tech. So we thought maybe, at first let's open a dispensary. Then we looked into it. We saw how difficult it might be. Then so we thought, why not just go into something that we know how to do anyway? So technology was the first option that we had. And we've been working on creating a POS was the first thing we thought. And then we started talking to folks and realized that there was a much bigger need for something that was more centralized, that could handle more than just sales and transactions. So we got into doing what we're doing now, which is something that's more of a holistic system for the whole entire dispensary.
Very cool. I love that you know, that's kind of an approach I took about a year ago is you wanted to work in this industry. And obviously the obvious route is to start a cannabis company, whether it's a wholesaler or a vertical or whatever it is. But then you take a step back and realize like, hey, this is an industry just like anything else. They need support services. They need lawyers. They need technology. They need packaging. They need graphic designers, marketing, and everything else. I did a small stint with an awesome gentleman for that company, Real Cloud Pros. His name is Dave Levy. If anybody needs help with general technology, definitely give him a call. But we kind of had a same thesis where we were going to try to affect the corporate organizations of the cannabis industry and help them get on Office 365 and different platforms. And we're looking at ERP systems. And it's interesting. The one thing that I noticed, which plays into what you're doing is, and we mentioned this right before we started the call, is every cannabis company I was talking to is using 10 to 15 disparate systems. None of these systems talk to each other. Every system has a different login. There's no management of these logins. There's no really security around them. A lot of people are sharing logins. The passwords are all over the place. I mean, it's honestly a shit show. And then the more sophisticated ones, what they're doing is they're building some kind of custom middleware with some random developing company to get this program to talk to that program to get to talk to that program. But for some reason, it's just not working out. So talk to me more about the different components of touCanna and how you guys are handling the supply chain. I noticed that there is, it integrates with Metric, I believe, which is one of the standards. I guess that's what you guys are using in Michigan as a state system. But I mean, are we ERP, CRM? Is there reporting involved? Give us just some of the highlights.
Yeah, exactly. So just to take a step back, what you've mentioned is exactly what we found, right? So we went to create a POS, then we found that they were using a POS system. A lot of times they had a lot of paper-based systems to manage everything else. And some other folks had a more advanced system, which was exactly what you mentioned. So they'd have a POS system, a CRM system, Slack for messaging, communication. So we thought, you know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to keep everything separated. It causes a lot of issues down the line. Reporting is a pain because everything is separated, right? Yeah, exactly. So what we thought, you know, we should do is what we ended up making, what we're making right now, which handles POS, sales and inventory, of course, which integrates with Metric. You're correct. That's what we use in Michigan. And also, we realized that training was a huge hole in the industry as far as like standardization and like technology. So what we do handle is training, onboarding, payroll. We do, what else?
Finance. We do a lot. There's a finance module as well, marketing, project management, work order management. So if something breaks in the store, folks can manage that. There are vendors who fix the things that break in the store. Pretty much anything that keeps a dispensary afloat, really, from an operational perspective.
Yeah, to scheduling your folks. So really everything that we found that wasn't connected previously in their store, we just figured, why don't we just put it into one system, keep it connected, and give them access to it and make it real easy to use.
Very cool. It's a unique opportunity to kind of tailor that directly to the cannabis space from scratch. Do you think that do you think that worked to your advantage? The fact that you don't have an Oracle or a Microsoft or someone in this space taking their products that have been around forever and customizing here, that you actually can just kind of survey the top customers in Michigan, for example, and just figure out what do you need to do business and just build it very streamlined that way. I imagine that was a little bit of an advantage for you.
100%. And I think that is going to happen eventually. I think, you know, those big companies are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen in the industry before they really jump in. So I do think this is a unique opportunity for us to build it from scratch. And we have talked to we've done 100 plus interviews with dispensary managers just to make sure that we're getting feedback. And some of them have mentioned they can tell the difference between platforms that were built from scratch and others that, have been kind of just changed to fit the cannabis industry. There's a clear difference. So I think, the fact that we can come in, get this feedback and turn that into something we build from the ground up is definitely a big advantage for us.
Very cool. Well, let's take a step off the platform for a second. Let's talk about you two, right? So I'm always infatuated about how businesses come to be. Did you two know each other beforehand? Have you done business? Have you started a business together before? Have you guys worked together? How did you come together to form touCanna?
It's a great question. Drum roll. We're a couple. Yeah. yeah, we're a couple. So we've been dating for 4+ years. So we both worked in the corporate world, and we'd come home and like have these conversations about work and what was wrong with it. All the bureaucracy, all this stuff that happened, and we just thought, why don't we make something that's perfect, since we were always complaining anyways, right? So yeah. So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, that's how that came about. Like, hey, let's get into something, and cannabis was the thing that made the most sense at the time.
Very cool. It's funny. They say a lot of people that you shouldn't work with your spouse and everything else. I think that's complete bullshit, because I can tell you, when I come home, I've attempted to do a few projects with my wife, and honestly, I'm trying to drag her into doing this podcast with me, not so much being behind the camera, but just managing. You guys know how terrible I am at managing my own calendar, managing my calendar and all of that. So I'm hoping, honey, you're watching this podcast and you can see that it can be done, and that you can help me start managing this podcast and promoting it for me. But I give you guys credit, because I think it takes, kind of a step back, that you have to be able to figure out how to work together and how to have that home life. My parents have been doing it my entire life, right? So, I think you have a built-in advantage, because Thanksgiving morning, you have an idea, you're literally in the same house, you guys just talk about it and work on it, versus having to like meet up or send each other things. I really do think that's an advantage. So that's awesome. Had you talked about doing anything together before, or was this just kind of the perfect opportunity to do it?
I think we talked about going into entrepreneurship together from the first year that we started dating, to be honest. Like Louis said, we'd come home after work, we'd carpool, and we'd come home and just talk, and we'd come up with all of these ideas. And initially, back in 2017, we started a training company, where we offered training for folks that wanted to transition to the tech industry. So we started off with that. And then, we grew to this and to work on touCanna. But yeah, I think we've always, wanted to be here.
And you guys are both doing this full time now?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, so we're still employed, until we launch and until things start to really take off.
All right. I was going to say, that is a big risk, both of you guys doing that together. But no, that's great. And so what I'm always infatuated about, and you might have heard me talk to other entrepreneurs about this, is I call the nothing to something moment, right? At one point, you have a business that's just an idea, and then all of a sudden you take an action and you actually have the business. You have something to work on. And I think in entrepreneurship, that's probably what keeps most people out of it, is they really don't even understand what the first step is beyond like maybe forming an LLC, right? Do you hire? Do you market? Do you create a logo? Do you work on the product, right? Obviously, with the technology background, it's maybe, do I put my head down and start developing? But how do you go from having those conversations at home where you're kind of just complaining that there's nothing out there that's solving this problem, to deciding we should solve that problem? Now you have the idea, to forming a company and actually executing on it. What are the steps that you all started to take? Was it just, hey, I'm going to put my head down and start developing, or, we're going to start just asking people what they need? How do you actually develop the business to where you actually have something to work on every day?
That's a great question. So I think for us, we wanted to make sure that we went into business solving a problem that was real. So we didn't just jump and started working on something. We wanted to first understand the industry, the software side of it. So we did some research, kind of who was out there making what. And then we kind of did some more research to see who was using what software, so what dispensaries were using. And we started talking to folks to understand what the gaps were. And that's how we came about with our solution. So yeah, so my fear is working in software, my fear was, we have this great idea, quote unquote, great idea, start working on it, build something after a year, release it, and nobody wants it. So we wanted to make sure that it was a real problem that was being solved with what we did.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in here too. So I get this question a lot, honestly, and I started doing like a little video series because I get the question so much. One of the things that we really prioritize is talking to potential customers. I think what happens a lot of times when folks have an idea, like Louis said, they think it's the best thing ever, they build it, and then nobody wants it. So initially talking to as many people as possible that you think will want the solution, that is the key. And I think that's what helped us, and that's what caused us to pivot from creating a POS to what touCanna ended up becoming.
Nice. So you guys know that during the day, I do software / marketing sales, right? I work for Spring Big. So obviously I understand what it's like to try to get a hold of people in the dispensary world in Michigan, right? When you decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and start interviewing people and figure out what they want, is at that point, are you going to dispensaries? Are you knocking on doors? Are you picking up the phone and cold calling? How do you even start going about figuring out who to talk to and getting them to give you the time of day?
Yeah, that's actually a really funny story. In the beginning, so we thought, let's go door to door. We were actually in Oregon when we started doing this. We're back in Michigan now, but for a short period of time. So it's legal medically and recreationally out there. So I started going door to door, just like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I just need maybe an hour or two of your time. And yeah, everybody was really nice. Like, yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, for sure. Just come back around this time. And I'd come back the next day and it'd be, well, come back tomorrow. And it'd be, well, how about next week? And so, so eventually I was really defeated because I've never done sales, right? I was an amateur. So I just, I came home once and I'm like, yo, Cree, this isn't going to work out. I'm not cut out for this. So, so then she had the idea, well, why don't we just put up an ad on like Indeed? Right? Why don't we put up an ad on Indeed, say, hey, we want to talk to you, find out about the industry, so on and so forth. And I guess we just put it up. And after a day, we had like 10 to 15 hits. And
very cool.
We just grew from there. Just met one person, introduced us to somebody else, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Very cool, man. Yeah. Well, welcome to the world of sales where you get rejected 90% of the time. I mean, my early dating life prepared me for it, but I can tell you,
it hurts.
Being in sales is what drove me to start using cannabis in the first place. I had a conversation with my colleagues today because we were joking about the rejection. And I was telling them, I said, when I started my first sales job, I used it to disconnect and sleep because you would literally be on the phone all day, rejection after rejection after rejection. So welcome to my world. It's lots of fun. You question why you do it all the time. But on that note, you guys both have a background in tech. What are the specialties here? Are one of you more on the development side? The other one's more on the business side? Are you both developers? What's the plan here? Who has the fun of being rejected going forward once you launch? Obviously, I kid. I think you guys are going to do great, but it's always fun being in sales.
Yeah. So I don't know. We've definitely done a lot of reading, and I think we're definitely not experts in sales. I think we're better positioned now than we were when Louis was going door to door. But so yeah, we both have a tech background. Louis has a couple more experience than I do. So he's more on the development side. He's done some database design, whereas for me, I've done a little bit of developing, some configuration, a lot of project management. So, we're a little diverse there. We definitely have a team though. It's not just us.
I saw that on the website. That's all right. I did see that.
Yeah, we know what
you guys have a pretty solid team. Actually, I looked. There's another like 7 of you, if I remember.
Yeah, yeah, and those folks have changed a bit, but we definitely know where we were not skilled. Marketing was a big. We knew nothing about marketing at whatsoever, so we definitely tried to fill that gap and bring on some folks there. So. Yeah.
So thank you guys, whoever has helped us so far. Really, you've really helped us, and thank you so much. Yeah.
It's very, very cool. So I think that shows a huge sign of maturity when you go to start a business, to be able to admit what you're good at and what you're not good at, and to realize that if there's something that's really not in your wheelhouse, it's almost detrimental for you to try to take it on yourself, right? Because you only have so much. And that's something I didn't learn until having a full-time job and doing this full-time, literally doing 2 full-time jobs together, that your time is the only thing you can't get back. So for the two of you to say, okay, this is what we're good at, and if we were to try to learn sales and marketing, it's going to take away from what we're good at. So why don't we bring on other people? Did it take you a little bit of effort and trial and error to get to that point? Or was it just kind of like, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to need some help in these areas?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I feel as though initially we knew this is not our expertise, so we need people. So I feel like very early on we took that approach, thankfully.
Yeah, and I think what really helped with that is because we were really confident with the technology piece. So we were like, well, we know we bring something to the table. We're not completely useless, but but like at the same time, like we know this is really important also. So it would be foolish for us to just try to take it on ourselves and do a poor job. So yeah.
I mean, you've got Jobs and Wozniak, you've got Gates and Allen. There's always two sides to the coin. So I think it's great. So you guys have developed a product thus far. I'm assuming it's kind of in beta testing right now. I'm not very good with software testing terms. Do you actually have any dispensaries that are testing it out yet, or?
Yeah, so our beta goes live in January. So we're not there quite yet.
Cool.
We're in the phase of signing up dispensaries. So we do have a couple of prospects that will be tested in. So.
Very nice. Are you guys, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure and anxiety leading up to that January beta release, but I'm sure you're pretty pumped about it.
So yeah, so excited because it feels like it's been such a long road. We've been developing for the past almost a year now, but we've been working on it, the planning and, doing the mock-ups and all that for 2 years now. So it's exciting and it's anxiety provoking, yes, but I'm just ready to put our baby out there,
Very cool. And I'm assuming it's all cloud-based and everything else, all that good stuff along those lines.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, all the latest and greatest, as much as we possibly could. So just, even though we do have a lot of technology knowledge, I would say, we still relied on other folks, other experts. So we contracted some security experts, some database experts. So yeah, so it is in the cloud. We are trying to make it as secure as possible. We do understand that being in the industry and dispensaries more specifically, you deal with a lot of personal information. So that's a really big problem to solve or to tackle that we want to keep in the forefront of our mind when we build a platform. So.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that's a great point, Louis. That's something that's been mirrored in the conversations that we've had, especially with the hackings, not to call any companies out, but I'm sure we know of the hackings that have taken place over the last couple of years. So that's a big concern for dispensaries.
No, it's definitely a problem that's coming more and more to fruition. People don't, I think when the cybersecurity conversation started amongst businesses, everyone thought if you weren't like a Target or a Walmart or a major corporation that you weren't, I guess is a pun, a target, right? But they don't realize that small businesses are the low hanging fruit because they leave the door open, right? So it's a lot easier to get into a mom and pop business than it is to get into a Target because there's layer upon layer of security. It's just a bigger reward, right? So there's a lot of hackers that will pick off small shops. I think it's interesting, and it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had. I'm glad that you guys are. I mean, listen, cloud-based technology to me is more secure because there are folks like you that have the experience that are focusing on the security versus Bob in accounting who's running patches on Tuesday nights that Microsoft's pushing out and doesn't really know much beyond it, right? So I think you guys are doing the right thing. So what's the plan here? We launched the beta in January. I think you said something about trying to go full live in April. Is it just world domination? Are we starting in Michigan, Oregon? Do you have a plan of how you're going to approach the market without giving out too many trade secrets?
World domination for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously.
That's what I like to hear.
So that's very good question. So our goal is to go live in January with the beta and then create an email list to kind of get some more prospects. And based off of that, kind of narrow down to where we should start. We are hoping to go live with Oregon and Michigan first. You're correct, because that's just where we have the most people that we've spoken with and have worked with, and is eventually expand out. So our goal really is to start with growing markets like Michigan. We would love to go into like Illinois as well, things in the
Very
Midwest,
cool.
Missouri, because California is a great market. I'm sure it is, and Oregon and Washington, they're all great markets, but they're more established and people are more comfortable with what they already have. And speaking to them is what we've realized. And I feel like places where it's still up and coming is where we have more of an opportunity to make a name for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I would agree with you in Michigan. I think you're in a unique standpoint in Michigan, where Michigan, is at a point where the market is truly evolving, where, provisioning centers are now turning into quote unquote dispensaries, where they were provisioning centers because they were just medical, and, the caregivers are now becoming provisioning centers, and everything's just maturing. And, I work in that territory as well. I see it starting to explode. You see California brands coming in. So I think you really are at this nice nexus point in Michigan where things are starting to get bigger. So I'm very excited to see what you all do. I mean, there's not much of a comment from you all on that, but you're in Michigan, you're seeing it firsthand. Would you say that the Michigan market is really just at a tipping point where it's really going to start to blow up?
I would agree 100%, because although we did go fully legal in 2020, excuse me, a lot of municipalities and jurisdictions kind of opted out to of recreational cannabis. And finally, I think just 3 weeks ago, the city of Detroit, which people are either we're betting on Detroit because it's one of the biggest cities around here. They actually put forth some regulations on how to open dispensaries recreationally here. So yeah, it is definitely a tipping point right now. So we're really excited about that.
No, that's awesome. I'm really pumped for you guys. Like I said, Evan speaks very highly of you, so I think you have a great opportunity ahead of you. I'm very excited to see what you do with your software and see it perform. Um, you know, Listen, my knowledge is only so deep. Is there anything specific to the software that we should talk about that I may not be asking?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think, for one, like we said earlier, the software is very centralized. So folks don't have to refer to 10 different systems to meet their needs. One of the things that I personally love about the software, and I think it's a growing area in the industry, is education, learning and education and training.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of conversations recently about training specifically for bud tenders and making sure that they have the knowledge, that they have the education to support customers that come into the dispensary. So our software gives folks a platform to create their trainings, to create resources for their bud tenders so that their customers have a better experience. We did an interview a couple of months ago now with a dispensary manager, and he told us a story about he had a new employee that was starting and he didn't have the training material. They kept it in a filing cabinet. He just didn't have the time to dedicate to training
Yeah.
the bartender. And he said he was just so embarrassed. He thought it made a horrible impression on himself, on the dispensary. And so, just having something, giving them tools to be able to provide that training for their employees, I think is, kind of a game changer for folks.
Absolutely. And so just to add to that, we're also working with actual training providers to have integrations right into our system. So what we're hoping for is when we do go live is, let's say, for instance, you're a dispensary owner, Todd, and you want to go ahead and purchase touCanna. We'd let you know that we work with Bob Jones, who owns a training company, and you could integrate directly with them if you purchased their module through our program without having to leave our software platform. So that's something that we're really excited about. We're working with a few companies right now. So yeah.
That's very cool. Are you going to have other kind of, we'll call them I don't want to say upsells, but other kind of additional features that can be unlocked in different areas of the platform as well too? I mean, I can't think of any examples right off the top of my head, but it's almost like you have like an app ecosystem where you can make add-ons to the program.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that we're passionate about is giving an avenue for other smaller cannabis companies to get more customers. So we're working with one marketing company as of right now. And so they'll provide services. So that might be an upsell. So if customers want, website design or brand packaging or things like that, then we have an avenue where they can get those services through the platform for that agency.
Yes, and also
cool.
accounting, we're working with another accounting company to provide similar services. We had a meeting today with a cybersecurity company based out of Michigan that only focuses on small businesses. And they actually already have dispensaries in our portfolio. So we're hoping to partner up with them to also offer those types of services. So yeah.
Very cool. It seems like you guys absolutely know what you're doing and you're heading down the right path. We're getting towards the top of the hour here, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But before we let everybody go, what other things can we let people know? We definitely want to let them know where to find you, but what else may have missed that we want to get across?
That's a good question. So I think the main thing is, we're ramping up for our beta in January. So at this point, we're really just looking to connect with dispensaries. And during the beta program, dispensaries will be able to use the software for free of cost. And our priority is just getting feedback. We just want the platform to be as good as possible and as useful as possible. So, that's our main thing. We love to work with folks. We love to build these relationships with dispensaries. You can check out our website if you want to sign up for the beta. It's www.touCanna.io. So yeah, love to chat with folks.
Very cool. Well, I know we do have an audience in Michigan watching this. So if you're in Michigan, or even if you're anywhere else, but if you're in Michigan specifically, definitely go to their website and check it out. Sign up for the beta. When you guys have the beta, everything's going good. Let's connect again, because I'd love to bring you into the Spring Big family and talk about integrations there. Although I have absolutely no authority to do that. I'm just saying it on camera. No, I'm kidding. I know the people to introduce you to, so we'll definitely do that. Listen, I'm excited to watch you guys grow. I hope to have you on in a year from now to talk about the success that you're having, maybe even sooner. So let's definitely keep in touch. Myself, Evan, we're definitely a resource for you if you ever need us. Thank you guys so much for doing the show. And just one more time, let's get the website and everything else out to promote it before we get out of here.
Yeah, so the website is toucanna.io. So that's toucanna.io. And you can find us on Instagram at toucanna.io. And we're also on LinkedIn. We're very, we try to stay up on it. So my name is Louis Masensi. So that's Louis, and last name is a little complicated. So Masensi.
And I'm on LinkedIn as a Cree Robinson, Cree, and then I think Robinson is pretty doable. So yeah, love it.
It's a lot easier for you to do that than for Louis. Perfect.
Yeah, right.
Well, that was a low blow.
That was a diss.
Yeah, that was a low blow.
It was. Well, that's part of the fun of being a couple in business, right? You get to take those digs at each other, and then you pretend you don't mind in front of the business partners and go home and punish them for it. So
exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
I've got to ask one more question. The only reason I'm asking is because you guys are a couple. Who cooks dinner? Are we both cooking? We got two cooks in the family here.
We actually neither of us like cooking, but I think we have a good balance. We alternate quite a bit.
Yeah, I never remember to, right? So she just lets me know. It's like, hey, it's your day today, and then I cook, and then she does it, and then the next day is, hey, it's your day today, and then I cook, and then she does it. So yeah.
Sounds very much like my relationship. Wait till there's kids involved, and then you end up just getting asked to do everything. So I wish you guys the absolute best. I wish the best for the business and everything else along. Thank you again for doing this. And thank you for everybody at home. Again, toucanna.io. Check them out. They're going to be back. We're going to talk to them after the launch, and I'm sure we're going to see an awesome journey. Just remember, you saw them here first. We're done for the week. Join us next week with Sparky Rose. He is a Michigan icon as I'm seeing it here. We're going to be 6:30 next week on Tuesday, facebook.com/Canna Business Group. Of course, you can see our entire library of episodes at youtube.com/Elevate Your Grind. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind, and we're out.